Today brings with it the PC requirements for Titanfall 2, however Respawn have kind of gone a bit above and beyond here, as not only have they detailed exactly what each spec is, a minimum recommended and ultra actually means, they've also gone into some of the PC features as well. So, let's begin with the minimum. And I'll go through what each one means in just a moment, but let's start off with the OS, which is going to be Windows 7, 8, 8.1 or 10. CPU wise, you'll need an Intel Core i3-3600T or equivalent, 8 gigs of RAM, and for the GPU you'll need a GeForce GTX 660 with 2 gigs of VRAM or an AMD Radeon HD 7850, again with 2 gigs of VRAM, and this is going to be a DirectX 11 game. As for the hard drive space, it's pretty hefty but not unusual at 45 gigabytes. Let's move swiftly on to the recommended, which of course has the same OS listed. However, for the CPU you will need an Intel Core i5-6600 or equivalent, and again we make the jump from 8 gigs of RAM to 16 here, and for the GPU you need a GTX 1060 6GB variant and the AMD Radeon RX 480 8GB variant. Now it's pretty beefy for the recommended, so as you would expect for Ultra, which is 4K 60, you will need quite a bit more. For the CPU, you will need an Intel Core i7-6700K or equivalent, again 16 gigs of RAM, and a GeForce GTX 1080 with 8GB of video memory. So, let's talk about what they mean by minimum and recommended. And here Respawn says, quote, "Our goal for minimum PC specs on Titanfall 2 is that you can play at a 1600 by 900 resolution with most details turned on and average around 60 FPS. We strongly believe that if you at least match the posted requirements, you should have an excellent visual and gameplay experience playing the game, so don't be alarmed if you boot it up and don't need to turn all the settings to low for playable frame rates. Our artists would actually like if you could see their work. Because of this, you'll probably be able to actually run the game on a lower than minimum spec PC, but the quality and performance won't be quite ideal. For recommended specs, we're aiming for details nearly maxed out, 1920 by 1080 resolution, 2560 by 1440 is also very playable, and again an average of 60 FPS or higher. We chose the minimum specs with 60 FPS in mind for the pure gameplay benefits once you get to 60 FPS and beyond. Now, regarding the 4K 60 specs, again, this is targeted with obviously the 3840 by 2160 4K resolution, but again, at 60 frames per second. So, again, if you have lower specs than that, you could still play it at 4K, but do be prepared to sacrifice some frames there if you do not have the specs. So, with all that out of the way, let's move on to some of the PC features that they also detailed in the post. We have uncapped frame rate up to 144, which is definitely nice for those of you with a 144Hz monitor. You can fully remap the keys, which is awesome. You can enable or disable mouse acceleration in the menu, which is definitely good after the whole Bioshock thing. You can also have individual localization audio files to reduce download and installation size. They have gamepad support, multiple configurations and sensitivity options. And there's going to be save game and config stored in the cloud, and video control configs are also editable .txt files. There's also going to be voice and text chat in game, and multiplayer anti-cheat out of the box, and private match support that will include spectator slots. Now, it does seem they have some more in store for us for the game which comes out next month, as additional PC-specific options and optimizations are being added. So some changes are to be expected before launch, but it still gives you a pretty good idea of the kind of power you need to bring to the table at these various different frame rates and resolutions for Titanfall 2. Can I just say thank you Respawn for going into so much detail, because a lot of the time we just get minimum and recommended and we don't get told what that means. You know, is minimum 1080p or is it 720p? We just don't know a lot of the time. We can kind of surmise based upon the specifications, but a lot of the time we're kind of left guessing, to be honest, and this is probably one of the more detailed PC specs posts I've seen in a while, so big thank you to Respawn from me to them on behalf of pretty much everyone who's going to be playing this game on PC. So, there you have it. Unsurprisingly, Titanfall 2 is going to be quite the demanding game, but is anyone really surprised? Thank you very much for watching. As always, guys, your support is very much appreciated, and I'll see you next time.